guys, Pinobi here bringing you another Yu-Gi-Oh! Decklist video. It's been a long time since I've uploaded any content for my channel, and I actually just recently got back into Yu-Gi-Oh! And the very first local tournament that I went to, I actually topped, so I thought this might be a good opportunity to go ahead and give you guys some material. Going into the decklist, I was actually playing Karakuris. If any of you are keeping up with the current meta, you might know someone by the name of Desmond Johnson, aka the Karakuri King. He basically was an innovator for this style of deck for Karakuris. So basically using a model of the deck that I got from him and then modifying the card choices to fit my own playstyle, I decided to run that, and it worked to great success. So getting into the deck, the main deck, we have 3 copies of Effect Veiler and 2 copies of Max C. This is basically your hand trap lineup. The Effect Veiler is obviously incredibly useful in this format, just stopping everything from High Priestess to Dragon Rulers, anything really that can get into your way. Effect Veiler is obviously a great out, and since it's not going to be sitting on the field, it's not eligible to be destroyed by back row, and it keeps your opponent guessing. 2 copies of Max C. This is just really especially useful for when you're going second, to make sure that your opponent can't get too much established on board or too crazy of plays going. So it can usually keep your opponent at bay enough to the point where if you're going second, you can go off and hopefully OTK them in game 1 when they don't realize what deck you're playing. Going into the rest of the monster lineup, 3 copies of Solar Wind Jammer. If you don't know about this card, it's basically like Cyber Dragon, except for your opponent does not have to control a monster, which makes it infinitely better because it lets you go off on turn 1 and get a very established board and get a lot of pluses going and all of that fun jazz. Then we have 3 copies of Psychic Commander, obviously because he is the target for Emergency Teleport, which you'll see we're running when you get into the spell card lineup. I am still running 3 copies of Psychic Commander. Some Karakuri players are dropping it down to 2. I still like playing 3. I like having some main deck cards that I can side out without it hurting my original gameplay build too often. So like cards like Max C or Psychic Commander are cards that a lot of times I'm able to side out. Then we have 3 copies of Karakuri Strategist Nishipachi. Basically, when he's summoned, he changes the monster's battle position, which is such a flexible effect when you're synchro spamming monsters that can give you a special summon. So obviously incredibly useful. 3 copies of Nanishi. She's basically like a Bogart Knight. She gives you an additional summon for Karakuri monsters. She's kind of a push card in and of herself because you can, push for additional synchro plays, which I'll elaborate on that a little bit more in a minute. Then the monsters that you're going to be synchroing with, you have your level 4s, the Battle Searcher, the one who gets a monster back when you destroy something by battle, and then the Merchant, aka the Stratos. All incredibly useful cards. You'll notice I'm only playing 1 of each, which is very uncommon. Normally players play 2 of the Battle Searcher, 1 Quick, and anywhere from 1 to 3 Merchants, depending on their personal preference. This is actually probably one of the more controversial cards in a Karakuri deck as to how many copies you want to run. I always run at least 1, that way you can step synchro. After you machine dupe, so you have an abundance of level 3 tuners on the field, you can go 2 and 3 to make 5, and then 5 and 3 to make 8, so you can step synchro into your Burrito by going through Catastor. Also, it gives you access to Naturia Beast, which is a complete shutdown if they don't have the Priestess on Prophecy, so you need that. And then the level 4s are obvious. It makes you make Landois, makes you make Beret, Black Rose if you're running it. Just a lot of level 7 options. And then for the last monster in the deck, 2 copies of Karakuri Ninja Model 7749 Nanashik. If you don't know about this card, since not many Karakuri players play it or even know what it is, it's a level 5 Karakuri, and since the Beret and Beretos don't specify a level or an attack restriction, you can pull him from the deck. So if you don't have any push cards or any cards that are going to allow you to keep your combos going and establish more synchros, you can at least pull out a 22 beater, which is by far the most useful. Also, you can use him with level 3s to make more level 8s. So basically with running these 2 copies in the deck, you can level 8 spam versus the level 7 Beret spam. Going into the spells, for the staples, you have Monster Reborn, Heavy Storm, and Pot of Avarice. I consider Pot of Avarice a staple. So basic, the reason you don't run Dark Hole is because you're going to get an established board game 1. Also, you summon such big, or turn 1 I should say, and you run so many big monsters that you don't really have to fear their monsters particularly. Then you've got 3 copies of Instant Fusion. Since the goal for the deck is to synchro spam level 8 monsters, having an access to level 5s when you have so many level 3 tuners is obviously what you want. Then you got 3 copies of Emergency Teleport to get the Psychic Commanders out. It makes it so that if, let's say, you normal summon and they find a way around it, either with Warning or Effect Veiler, or they somehow negate your normal summon or stop you from going off with that normal summon, having access to a special summon level 3 monster is always incredibly useful. 2 copies of Desynchro. This is definitely a big change from what a lot of the Karakuri players are playing. Basically, Desynchro, put the Synchro monster back in the extra deck, summon the original materials. The reason you want to do that is because Karakuri Synchro monsters get effects on summon, so having a second summon allows you to go off more. But the reason I only play 2 is because it's kind of a win-more card. You can only use this card when you already have a Synchro on board, so you are already going to need your other combo pieces to establish the initial combo, and this just pushes it further and further. But a lot of the cards that give you the initial combo, aka Instant Fusion and Emergency Teleport, can also be used to keep the combo going as well. So I'd rather play more of those cards that can give me the initial combo and push it further than just the cards that push it further. 2 copies of Machine Duplication, another good example of what I was just stating. It gives you the initial combo, it helps you push it further. Really good card. The reason I'm only playing 2 as opposed to 3, which I used to play 3, is because I'm only running 1 of the Merchant now, where I used to run 3. So overall I have less targets, which means I'm going to want to run less copies. 2 copies of Iron Call. This is a newer card. This is what goes into the space of the decreased slot of Machine Duplication, etc. When you have a machine on board, you can summon a level 4 or lower machine type from your graveyard. Really good thing about this is that Solar Wind Jammer is a machine as well, so you can summon Solar Wind Jammer on, let's say they somehow get rid of your initial board, you can summon Solar Wind Jammer with the pluses that you're inevitably going to get with Burrito, then you Iron Call back one of the tuners, and then you go off all over again. So, really good card. I choose to run it at 2 just because, again, it's not something that's going to get you your initial combo because you're not going to have any machines in the graveyard at the start of the game. So I'd rather only play 2 copies, and I'd rather run more copies of cards that are going to get me the initial combo. 1 Karakuri Cash and 1 Karakuri Anatomy. These are the only Karakuri non-monsters that I'm running in the deck. The Cash is basically the Rhoda. The Anatomy is basically the 6 Sam United. Every time a Karakuri changes battle position, it gets a counter. You can sack it off with up to 2 counters to draw that number of cards. Really good card. I only play it at 1 though because like I've been saying, and I know I've reiterated this over and over, it doesn't help you get an initial combo off. It just keeps pushing it further and further and gaining more and more advantage out of it. So it's kind of a win-more card. But I like to run 1 copy just so I have a really useful target with Merchant if I ever normal summon it. And then the only trap card in the deck is 1 copy of Solemn Warning, just to stop really annoying monsters like Ophion, etc., etc., etc. Going into the extra deck, first you've got your level 8 monsters. 1 Crimson Blader. This is just obviously destructive in the Dragon Ruler matchup. If the opponent summons some sort of monster that you can run over with Crimson Blader, you just go ahead and summon this, run it over. Especially since Karakuris have such an abundance of access to ways to change monsters' battle positions, you are almost always going to be able to successfully pull off a Crimson Blader attack if you feel the need to, which against Dragon Rulers, obviously they can't summon pretty much any of their monsters. 3 copies of Burrito. You need 3. The way I play the deck, especially since I'm playing the Nanoshiks, it's more of a Synchro 8 spam variant of the deck. So I'm going to need to be playing 3. I often do go into all 3. Let's see, 1 copy of Scrap Dragon, just a generic level 8 Synchro monster, very useful, very powerful. 1 copy of Stardust Dragon. Usually I try to go for 2 Burritos, a Beret, and then depending on the matchup, either a Stardust Dragon or a Naturia Beast. So Stardust Dragon, obviously a great card to protect your board. Then you have 3 copies of Beret. You could cut it to 2 copies to make room for something else, maybe another XYZ monster or something like that, but I still decided to play 3 just in case I ever need to go into all of them. 1 copy of Black Rose Dragon. I'm probably going to cut this for a Heliopolis, the level 8 Exceed, but for the time being I am running Black Rose. I didn't go into it all day. I hardly ever go into it when I play the deck, even in playtesting, so I probably will cut it, but it's nice to have the option. Naturia Landois, this is an amazing card. It's basically you drop a spell card to negate a monster effect if you didn't know its effect before. Really useful against hand traps, Maxis, Veilers, but more importantly it stops Battle Faders, Gores, Tragoidia. Even though those things are starting to fall out of favor, just having access to a way to guarantee that you get the OTK is really useful, especially in the level 8 Synchro Spam variant of the deck, since you'll be drawing a lot more with Barreto than you would with the Beret, more level 7 Beret focused variant. Landois, you often will have the spell cards in your hand to pitch, since you're running all spells, only one trap. One Naturia Beast for the level 5s, obvious. Naturia Beast is a complete shutdown against Prophecy, very strong against other matchups as well. One ally just is Catastor. I hardly ever go into this for its actual effect or for using it as any sort of beat stick. Like I explained in the earlier segment of the video, it's basically a step synchro. I synchro 2 and 3 into 5, him, and then him and a tuner into Barreto, since Barreto can only be made with a machine non-tuner, and Catastor is a machine. And then 2 Cybersaurus because of the instant fusions, and because it's a machine, so I can go into Barreto. So obviously incredibly useful. Going into the side deck, we have 1 copy of Cyber Dragon along with 1 copy of Chimeratech. This is just to go against Dragon Rulers primarily, so that you can contact with their tokens or with their Dragosack. Then you've got 2 copies of the Ninja Sazonk. It is basically an out for Ophion. It's kind of like a Raikou. When he's flipped face up, you send a monster on the field to the graveyard, so send is even better because it avoids anti-destruction effects. And it's just an out for Ophion, which is a complete counter to this deck. 3 copies of Dimensional Fissure. This is just pretty much an out for water decks or other decks that are incredibly graveyard reliant. Those are starting to fall a little bit out of favor, but I'm still going to opt to keep those in the side for now. 2 copies of MST against incredibly back row heavy decks, since you definitely want to be able to get your combos off. 2 copies of Fiendish Chain. Again, this is for Ophion to negate his effect so that I can go off. 3 copies of Gozenmech. This is basically to dominate the Dragon Ruler matchup if possible, since that has, in my experience, been my most difficult matchup. You would think Evil Swarm because of Ophion, but somehow I've managed to play around it. But Gozenmech, shutting down dragons is obviously incredibly good since you're playing all Earth monsters. And then 1 copy of Royal Decree, again for those back row heavy decks. So that's going to be the deck. Like I said, I went to a tournament recently, the first tournament that I've been to in a long time. It was only a locals, so not really a big deal. But I did manage to get top. We decided to just split the prize amongst the top 8. So I don't know exactly how I would have fared or placed beyond that. I only lost 1 game all day, and that was to Dragon Rulers. He did beat me 2-0 very decisively, so I'm not going to take anything away from him. Very well played. He opened 3 gold Sarks, and I really couldn't play around that. Anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you have any questions, you can go ahead and ask them in the comments below, and I will be posting the deck list in the description so you don't have to fumble around and look for anything throughout the video. Thank you, and catch you guys later.